locals, am I allowed to say buonasera or is it too early? Buonasera. I'm so happy to be back in Verona. It's been great so far. And I'd like to emphasize that I am back in Verona. This is my first time here. Last time I was here was 2012, so 13 years ago. And first time I came here was 2011. And that was pretty much at the beginning of my speaking career. And I have really fond memories. I mean, it's always great to travel to Italy, Verona. What a city. I did the city walk this morning. Brilliant. And I still have very fond memories of the 2012 edition of phpday. Who was here in 2012? Phew. Yeah, a couple of people. I remember an earthquake. Do you remember the earthquake? Yes, you were here, Derek. Yeah, there was an earthquake, my first ever earthquake. I experienced it here with you, among with many other really fun stories, cool hangouts, and a lot of people I met. And I was quite excited to be here. I mean, I was pretty much at the beginning of my speaking career. My first international break was in 2010, and then being allowed to speak here in 2011 was a big deal to me. And now I'm here 13, 14 years later doing the keynote. So I'd never anticipated this. But I'm happy I'm here. And I'm here to do a keynote called 10 Things That Helped My Career. And I get it. If you look at it, it looks a bit like a Buzzfeed news article or a sort of a course that a fake YouTube influencer would sell online. It kind of looks like that. I assure you, ladies and gentlemen, that is not the case. I have no arrogance of teaching you anything. I have no ambition of inspiring you in any way, shape, or form. The only thing I'm going to do is I'll tell you 10 things that help me. And if they help you, great. And if they don't, no refunds. That's all I could say. Now, there's a couple of things I can and cannot do. As you can see, or maybe not see, there is a mark here on the stage. I cannot cross it, because apparently people at home are watching this as well. So in my current position, I am invisible to the outside world, to the people who are watching this on YouTube. But we'll play along, we'll play nice, and we'll be here. Now, a keynote is always a bit tricky, because I see a lot of speakers here. Hiding behind tech is quite easy, right? The tech speaks for itself, you don't have to do a lot. But being in a position to do a keynote, which ultimately I submitted, so it's my own fault, exposes you a bit and puts you sometimes in uncomfortable positions. However, it's not the first time I'm doing a keynote, and it's not the first time I'm doing this keynote. Last time I did it was in Germany, actually, at, let's see if the clicker thing works, at Unconf. And I'm already spoiling one of my slides. So I'm talking about 10 things that helped me advance my career. Here's number 4. But let's quickly put that away. I also did it in London, and there's people in this room who saw it in London. So I wonder what you guys are doing here. Because I always try to start my presentation by saying, I'm so grateful that all of you are here because you have options. That's usually the case in a multi-track conference. But today, we're all in the same room. But that still holds true. Because I was downstairs like 20 minutes ago, and that terrace out there with the drinks sure sounds tempting. So I'm even more grateful that you are here today. Now, the keynote I did in 2024 was actually a direct reaction of a keynote I did also at PHP UK in 2019, which in its turn was a reaction to 2 people I saw presenting there in 2018. 2 people from our community, Gary and Jenny, and they'd done a great job at presenting a keynote. And I thought for a minute, wow, I know these people, and I'm not sure if it's true, but I consider myself a peer of them. So if they have the guts to do it, maybe I should step out of my comfort zone and just do it. And I did. And all in all, I think it got across back in 2019 reasonably well. Now, the reason why it went reasonably well is because I had time to practice. And there's another conference I hold near and dear. It's the Dutch PHP conference in Amsterdam. It's the first one I've ever spoken at internationally. And then 8 years later, because first time I spoke was in 2010, it was the start of my international speaking career. And 2018, I was allowed to do the keynote, and I was hyper excited. And I gathered my thoughts after that inspiration I've gotten that same year in London, and I submitted, and I got accepted, and life was good. And I did everything as I usually do. Energy, passion, being honest, putting myself out there. But I got so caught up in the moment that I was a bit unfiltered. And let's say the reviews, you could still watch them. It's a pretty masochist thing of me to do, to put that on there. But you can read the reviews. I see people grabbing their phones. I wish I didn't say that. But you could still read the reviews. Please don't. And they were mixed. People didn't really like what I said. Let's conclude that I was in bro mode a bit too much, and I alienated a part of my audience. I had to learn from that, and I did. And a lot of the things I do now come from a sort of a new horizon I have about people, about sensitivities, about our scene and the world we live in. Now, important here for this presentation is in no way, shape, or form am I a victim in any of the stories. I think I know this, most people know this, but it's important in our environment to emphasize this, that I'm not a victim, I don't come from a disenfranchised background, I'm not underrepresented group. I'll just tell my stories and let's see how that goes. My name is Thijs, by the way, which, yes, as a Dutch-speaking Belgian, I have to explain that every now and then. So the MC asked me, so what's the closest name in Italian? And I came up with Matteo. No, it's true. It's true. Thijs, Matthijs, Matthias, Matthew, Matteo. That's how we get there. And yeah, I'm a Dutch-speaking Belgian, and I have the title of the Tech Evangelist at Varnish Software. I know, having the title Tech Evangelist is a lot. I know this. Adding a picture like this certainly doesn't help. But what I do is I do a lot of outreach. I do a lot of presentations. I create videos. I go to events, even smaller meetups, and I try to engage with people and talk to people. Now, usually it's about tech. Today, I can't really hide about that. But I can say that I'm the tech evangelist of the company called Varnish Software. A lot of people know us as the company behind the open source project. Of course, we do way more. We're a company that builds software-defined web acceleration and content delivery solutions with an emphasis on software-defined. Now, anyway, we're 4 minutes into it, and I promised I would tell you 10 things. Those 10 things will heavily depend on the amount of time we have today and where we get. So I'm also counting on the MC to cut me off when I'm in danger mode, when before we dive into the abyss, just cut me off. So 10 things, might be 8, might be 9. We'll see how we fare. So here we go, number 1. Ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you to show your passion. I'm not saying you should be passionate about something. That's an entirely different story. And I'm pretty sure if I scan the room, everyone is excited or passionate about something in life. Be it professional, be it a hobby, be it politics, be it whatever it is. You are passionate about it, and you dedicate a certain amount of time to it. My advice would be to showcase that in whichever shape, way, or form you please. Because by showing yourself, by putting yourself out there, by dedicating energy to things, you could stand out. And I've seen a lot of people who are pretty excited or passionate about this niche, fringe, exotic thing. And a lot of people tell them, well, it won't really result in anything. My advice is here to try it. The time will tell. You could run into a brick wall eventually and nothing happens, but at least you've tried. So whatever you seem passionate about might be unrealistic at some point or at this point, but it might lead you somewhere. It also might lead you to a crossroads that's not there yet, where you notice that the thing you're passionate about actually leads into something else, and that might give you career or benefit in your career, in your life, your mental health, whatever it is. The fact that I'm here is or have that role and showed you that picture of me standing like this as a technical evangelist is also a direct consequence of that, because the job I currently have, it didn't exist 25 years ago, I guess. So it's not because it doesn't exist or the world isn't ready for it yet that it can't happen. Problem is, with whatever you do that involves passion, is that you run the risk of exposing yourself. You're in a vulnerable position. I am in a vulnerable position, and I entirely depend on your friendliness to get through the next 40 odd minutes. If you don't like what I have to say, I'm in real trouble. But number 2 of the things I'm going to tell you is that it's okay to take an occasional risk. Sometimes you do something and you fall flat on your face. And what I did in 2018 at the Dutch PHP conference involved falling flat on my face. The problem was I didn't discover it until I start reading the joined in feedback or until I started reading the tweets. But it's fine. I mean, we talk about comfort zones. Often I have a literal comfort zone here. I have that little mark on stage that I cannot step outside of. But I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely fine to step outside of it. I sometimes have to do things that I'm not comfortable with, and it doesn't feel nice. But after a while, if you are surrounded by people that you trust and that you have your best interest at heart, it is sometimes safe to step outside of that world. and to take the fall if it goes wrong. And I'm sure if you take the fall, you will certainly recover from the embarrassment. You will certainly maybe recover from the pain that it caused, and it will teach you a lot, and it certainly did teach me a lot. Now, there's an important disclaimer here. I'm talking about taking risk. I've seen people take uncalculated risk that led into catastrophe. So please, if it could damage your health, both physical and mental, your livelihood, your family, whatever you have, be careful before you jump the shark. But all in all, things, and I think that's a mindset kind of thing, things usually are all right. It's not all that bad. However, along the way, people will try to give you advice on what to do, what risks to take. And my advice here is, which is a bit of a contradiction, don't take my advice. Be very careful who you take advice from. We all know this type of person, I would call it a persona, who's very conservative and whose world revolves around putting things, pigeonholing things nicely into boxes. Everything has to fit. Risk isn't really great. And their world revolves around consolidation of position, consolidation of power, accumulation of assets, could be financial, could be other, and everything else is just transactional. I know a couple of people like that, and I know organizations or groups who are very careful have given me advice. Also, advice is cool. I'll give you a very concrete example. We are here in the world of tech, but I don't consider myself a great developer. And that's actually fine, because I wanted to combine my language skills with my desire to help people and to use tech for that. And I studied languages in high school, and school counselors told me, Thijs, you shouldn't go into IT. This is not for you. I mean, you suck at maths, you have no analytical skills, and your language skills aren't needed in IT. Now, those first two are true. I suck at maths, I have no analytical skills. But little did they know that software, and I know it's a cliche, software is eating the world, but it's true, and the fact that we're all here is testament to that. And I decided to disregard their advice and still study IT and still find a career where I started out as a support engineer, where I could help people on the phone and via email, do communication with them, and add a layer of tech. And as I gradually got further in my career, I noticed that instead of doing the one-to-one support call, support email, I could actually talk to crowds or record videos that are watched by multiple people. And I disregarded that advice. Now, remember those people who are very conservative, everything needs to fit nicely into boxes and everything is about accumulation. Don't take career advice from them. Take financial advice from them, by all means. You're quite good at that. I have a couple of friends like that, but never take career advice from that. What I would encourage you, and again, don't take my advice in terms of anything, is to find people who see life as a sort of a sequence of experiences and try to live life as a set of experiences. And if you do that, and if you throw your full weight behind it, and if you're passionate about it, ultimately the success will come, and there probably will be someone who is going to fund that. Maybe there's people here who've had an interesting course in their career, a couple of people sitting here in the front row that I had the luck of getting to know, and these are not 9-to-5 desk jockeys, I guess. So be careful who you take advice from, because although these people aren't evil, their worldview is sometimes a bit restricted and conservative, and I'd much rather listen to people who have lived and who have seen things. I'll take advice from them. But that advice will ultimately come under the form of criticism. And you should listen to that criticism. Because it's quite easy if someone criticizes you to say, oh, they don't get it, or they're just hating on me. Some people do, some people don't. And if I look back at my semi-disastrous DPC 2018 keynote, I took the effort of reading what people actually wrote. And I've learned from that a tremendous amount, because I wanted to get past the embarrassment and I wanted to get past feeling offended. Because the first couple of minutes, you're like, I did all this work, I thought it went great, the feedback in the room was great, but afterwards it wasn't so great. So I listened, I've learned, and the conclusion was that I failed to include the entire room into my presentation. There is a realistic chance I'm failing at that again, and then again I'm counting on you to give feedback. So I've learned from that. A lot of people, although it felt personally insulting, they actually took the time to lay out what was wrong, what they didn't like, and I took that on. I also was in a situation at work where I had to do a demo. The boss contacts you and says, look, Thijs, we need to do a demo. There is a live component in there. We'll record it as a webinar. Can you do it? I thought, oof, big task. let's get ready for it. So I started preparing it, and we all know live demos, right? They can fail on you at every given time. And usually they will in the most awkward moments. So what I did is I wanted to avoid that risk because I wanted to do a good job. So I started automating things and writing Ansible scripts and Terraform scripts to ensure that anything that I could click that could go wrong was nicely automated. And then it was time to present it in a dry run to management, and I did, and look, and the end result is exactly what we wanted. And then came this very awkward silence, where management said, or our CEO at least said, look, Thijs, this is not what we want. This is not at the level that we expect this demo to be. And to be honest, you're hiding way too much of the journey behind layers and layers of automation. And another thing, we hired you to do that type of thing, and we hold you to a much higher standard. This is not what we expected. Whew, pretty harsh, right? The guy who leads the company, the guy who you look up to, the guy who hired you, says we hold you to a higher standard. That took me like a couple of hours to recover from. But when you get past that, and you peel back the layers of that, he pretty much said in that very case, you're hiding the journey behind layers and layers of automation. You can compare it to doing like a math quiz where the equation at the end, the result is important, but the steps you take are equally important. Well, that was one of those. So I gathered my thoughts, took a week, redid the demo, and peeled back all the layers of automation, and exposed myself in a pretty vulnerable position, knowing that things could go fully wrong at any moment in time. But due to past experience, I realized even if you make a mistake in front of an audience, in a group, if you're honest about it, and if you show how things work, they'll be generous. And I did that, and I showed it, and I did everything live, and sometimes something went wrong. But in the end, I got the feedback like this is at the level that we want. We're showing the behind the scenes, we're showing how it works, and I'm happy with the result. And I thought, great. I went from a -1 back to level ground, back to 0. And then he said, but I'm particularly impressed by the fact that you took that pretty harsh feedback I gave. I was very direct to you and managed to listen to it and learn from it, and I'm particularly impressed with that. So all of a sudden, I thought I failed and went to -1, but because I recovered from that and because I've listened, I went from -1 to +1, actually gained from making that mistake. The French actually have an expression for that. They call it reculer pour mieux sauter, which means take a step back to ground yourself and prepare to make a bigger leap than when you were close. And that surprised me that failure could be such a source of inspiration and could come at gains that you didn't expect. Now, of course, all of that criticism, if you manage to unpack it properly and get the correct learnings from it, could be valuable. I mean, even this week, I'm not sure if I'm even supposed to say this. I was working on a pretty big piece of content for the company, and we've spent a couple of weeks on it. And yesterday, I got word that it wasn't good enough. And a couple of us it really affected us for at least a couple of hours. All that work we've put in. But we've learned from it. We've learned things about how to handle the communication internally, how to better collaborate with the people in charge, and also how to adjust whatever we've built better to the message that we want to spread. And yes, it's a tough one to swallow. And yesterday and the day before, I was like, fuck, I spent 3 weeks working on it, it's not good enough. But I'm 100% sure that by making that mistake, I won't make it again. I'll learn a tremendous amount. But there's also people out there, I'm not sure if you know people like that, who give criticism for the sake of criticism. And I've seen a couple of those things in my feedback where it wasn't about giving me criticism to help me. It was more about putting themselves in a better position by calling me out. That happens as well. And if it helps them, shouldn't really be angry about it, but I did notice it. And watch out for that. Try to filter the noise from the message. Some people do use that for virtual signaling. It's unfortunate, but if they gain from it and they're happy with it, who am I to say they should? But it happens, spot it, identify it, and those are the things you shouldn't listen to. So try to separate the noise from the message. Now, I'm going to go to that message because I've been beating around the bush that what was the message that people didn't like? Well, there's a couple of things, but one thing I said was in order to achieve anything, you have to work relentlessly and sometimes make sacrifices. And while that is technically true, there was some backlash there. Things like, why aren't you considering work-life balance? Why aren't you considering mental health? The year was 2018. I had no awareness of mental health, work-life balance, burnout. Those were things that were not on my radar in 2018. Now the year is 2025, and a lot of people in my surroundings have suffered from those things, and it's all very more real to me. And I would have been much more sensitive in the way I approached this, but back then I didn't know, and technically it still holds true. So I got a little bit of backlash for that. But I've learned from it, and I would rephrase it, and this brings me to point number 5, is in order to achieve anything, yes, you still have to work really, really hard, but you have to make choices in life. I have to make choices in my life. There are things I want to achieve that would require me to sacrifice certain things, and it's up to you to decide if it's worth it. And if it's not worth it, if you want to maintain that work-life balance, the consequence is that you have to be more patient. Whatever you're chasing won't come just yet. It doesn't work like that where you can slack off and not do as much and then expect the results to come immediately. Now, of course, talent, if you have talent for something, it is definitely an accelerator. It definitely accelerates the work. But at some point in time, in my personal situation, sometimes you just want to sit in the couch and watch TV, or you want to go out with your friends and not work on that development open source project, not work on that video, not repair the thing in the house that you wanted to repair. It's just reality. But you have to accept the consequences of your own complacency. And I've done that a fair number of times. Right now, there is stuff on my computer that if I do it, it will give me a lot of joy, and it will give other people a lot of joy. There's this video project I'm involved in that I have an audience for. If I publish it, a couple of thousands of people are going to be happy. But it requires so much work, and I'd much rather sit in my couch, because unlike when I started my career, I now have a family, I have 2 kids, I have a wife, you have a social calendar, you have hobbies, your kids have hobbies. Like, life gets a lot more complicated. And I'm perfectly fine now accepting the consequences of my own complacency. But ultimately, I'll do the work, and maybe the result will come then. It could be that I'm missing the momentum, but then again, I'll accept the consequences of my own complacency. Now, that doesn't mean that this work-life balance solves everything, right? It's still, if I have to rephrase that relentlessness in a better way, it's like you have to fill your bucket to the top to reach the result. And every drop helps. And maybe you do some now, and maybe you'll do some later. But ultimately, getting success, yes, talent is an accelerator, but the bucket has to be full. And you have to realize that. So number 5, accept the consequences of your own complacency and be patient. You have to be at the right place in the right time, they often say, but you also have to be in the right mindset. And if you're not in the right mindset when the opportunities take place, be patient, work on it. You will get there. A very practical one here. Languages. Number 6, languages are important. Learn them, or learn more. Who here speaks more than one language? That's a lot. Yeah, most Italians speak English, right? Who here, who is local, who is Italian, speaks a language other than Italian and English? Still a couple? Great, great. Has that worked out for you? Have you used that in certain situations to your advantage? I see most people nodding. Yeah, I agree with that as well. Now, the reality of my life is I live here. I live in this super tiny country, and I live in a small city. I'm going to have to step out of my comfort zone now, step out of the boundaries. In a small city in the west of Belgium called Dixmude. As you can see, it's surprisingly close to the French border. So I'm exposed to French quite a bit. We have tons of French tourists who visit the area I live. Also, I'm very close to the Netherlands. I'm quite close to the UK, and it only takes me 3 hours to drive to Germany. And because I live in a multilingual country, my native language is Dutch. I learn French from the age of 9, English from the age of 14. And because right here, or somewhere over there, there's this tiny contingent where we have a German-speaking part of the country. So as a result, I started learning German at the age of 16. Am I perfect in all these languages? Absolutely not. But sometimes a couple of catchphrases help. I did a foreign exchange program in Finland back in 2004. Do I speak Finnish? No. Do I know a couple of catchphrases? Yes. Does that start a conversation sometimes? It does. What I also did was I installed Duolingo on my phone. This is not a paid ad. Duolingo is definitely not the best app out there, but it was the one I chose, and it's the one I'm sticking to. And I studied 2 years of Swedish, which was great, because mycket bra. Derek is trying to Derek is trying to, try speak Norwegian to me and I respond to you in Swedish? Maybe later, maybe later. So the reason why I did that is I work for Varnish Software, which is a Swedish company. And I remember the year 2021. Everyone, it's time to reflect on how your 2021 was. It was a weird time, right? 2021 was very weird. We're like, the pandemic is still going on, but we see a silver lining among the dark clouds. But the silver linings were very different country to country. Back in Belgium, restaurants were still closed, bars were closed, I had to wear mouth masks, I couldn't do anything. I was pretty much locked down. Meanwhile, in Sweden, life was entirely different. And our CEO, after me writing a book during the COVID pandemics, asked me to come over to see the book. Now, I have a free copy of the book, and I wanted to show it because it's part of the story. This is a 778 pager. I'm going to put it here. But that exemplifies how long these lockdowns were. I was stuck at home from March 2020 until God knows when. And I wrote this book in Markdown on Git. I posted to GitHub. Every chapter is a folder. Every section of a chapter is a Markdown file. And I had a build pipeline, and using Pandoc, I was able to turn that into a PDF. And that gave me sort of a progress report. And the idea was, let's write a 300-pager. And then more content gets added. And then you think, oh, crap, it's going to be a 500-pager. And then ultimately, you submit the manuscript to the printer, to the editor. They put their layout on, and it's a 778-pager. Now, that book was printed. It's 2 kilos. We printed 1,000 of those. Those ended up in the Swedish city of Karlstad. And my CEO said, you're going to fly to Stockholm now. We're going to spend the day at the office, and then we're going to take the train to Karlstad, see the books. We've run a raffle, so you're going to have to sign 60 books. And then we're going to fill our suitcases with as much books as we can, and we're going to travel to Oslo. And that was a different world I was in. As soon as I stepped off of the plane in Stockholm, no one was wearing masks. Life was great. Bars were open. Restaurants were open. It felt safe. And that was such a pivotal moment for me, like, wow, this is a great company I work for. The Nordics are great. People are great. I'm here in it for the long haul, apparently. I want to stay here. So why don't I learn the language? Now, can I speak Swedish well? Absolutely not. It's been a while since I've last done the Swedish. Meanwhile, I've switched to Spanish. But still, I think if you learn a little bit of a foreign language and you go somewhere, it shows you that you have passion and that you're willing to expose yourself and that you put skin in the game. And when I see my Swedish colleagues in a talk or in a call, I'll just start in Swedish until they respond to me at a point I can't keep up anymore, and then we switch back to English. It's great, and I would advise you to do it, and I would advise you to leverage it, especially in the bigger territories. I mean, if I were able to speak Italian in a country like Italy, you would love me much more. The only thing I could say is like, tutto a posto? You're not seem to respond. Tutto a posto? Si. All right, si. Yeah, great. So all of these little things help, and I would, these are more hacks than anything else, but I would encourage you to learn more languages. You could also argue that learning a new language could also help you with development, with software development. I remember studying 6 years of Latin, which is the foundation of Italian, I guess, right? Did anyone here study Latin? Is that still a thing? Oh, great, great. In the later years, when you've had enough vocabulary and grammar, they start explaining to you why certain things are the way they are. And you learn to deconstruct languages. And that helped me tremendously learning new languages, but also the inside of how programming languages sometimes work. Maybe it's a stretch, maybe you don't believe me, but I believe that learning languages could certainly help you. So check, learn languages. Here's number 7. Ladies and gentlemen, I would encourage you to break out of the corporate mold. So what we do, we're like the fact that I'm not wearing a shirt or dress shoes or a suit means that we're in a pretty relaxed environment, right? The community, PHP community, tech communities in general are pretty laid back. You can underdress it's underdressing by design, right? But what we do is still part of a business, ultimately, either directly or indirectly. And there's a certain unwritten rules and laws that we sometimes have to follow, especially when engaging with clients and prospects. And my advice is don't follow the standards, don't do any of that. Break out of the corporate mold and be yourself without abandoning the basic levels of decency, the basic levels of professionalism. But try to be different and try to stand out. Because there is no such thing as business to business. It doesn't exist. What is business to business? It's a human working at a company trying to sell something to another human that works on another company. And the only reason why that human is going to buy that product or that service is because A, it's good, and B, they trust the person convincing them to buy it. So if you want to stand out with whatever you do, try to be yourself, try to be different, and don't try to replicate other models. What I did that really worked for me, I'm not sure it's going to help you, but it certainly helped me, is this slide. I talk about caching a lot. I started talking about it in 2010, and I went to a lot of tech conferences talking about caching. And there was a guy in our PHP community that said, if you start a presentation, don't start with the boring, hi, my name is Thijs, welcome to my presentation. First thing you need to do is tell a story or find a way to connect. And whenever I talk about caching, the first slide I put into these talks is this one. I'll go into character for you. Ladies and gentlemen, here at PHP Day in Verona. Do we agree that slow websites suck? See, and that's the type of connection you need. It could be whatever you want. You could do that in a meeting instead of, let's say you're in a call and you have to do the rounds to introduce yourself. Do it in a particular way where you stand out, your personality stands out, and it facilitates to show what your, I won't call it superpower is, it's a term that's been overused, but what you're good at. And the direct result of me putting that in more than 100 presentations is that the CEO of Varnish Software saw it. He contacted me and said, I see you talk a lot about Varnish in a non-conventional way. Instead of doing that for the Belgian hosting company, why don't you do it for us? And I confronted 5 years later our CEO with this. And I said, this is the slide that got me hired, right? And he said, yeah, that's how I noticed you. So sometimes you just have to stand out. You have to break through the corporate mold, or you have to break through preset stereotypes in general. One of the stereotypes I like breaking is, might piss you off. I'm pretty sure some of people will be annoyed by this, is even in our tech community, breaking out of the stereotypes. I'd like to call those stereotypes the Star Wars and coffee crowd. Who here likes Star Wars? Who here doesn't like Star Wars? We're among friends. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. Then again, you're expected to like it. I remember that I got made fun of for not knowing Star Wars. Like, what the hell? So I started watching it. And unfortunately, I fell asleep. So it wasn't for me. Also, coffee. I've never been a fan of coffee, but I've tried my first caffeinated hot drink in 2024. I tried a latte macchiato. And while I'm not a coffee fan, it starts sipping in. I do know there's things you can't do, there's things you can do. I cannot ask for a cappuccino now here, right? I'm going to offend people by doing it. So I would like you to think about what makes our scene, our world in terms of stereotypes, and see if we can get beyond them. Because by breaking down these barriers, I'm sure we could be even more inclusive to others who aren't part of those things. What else defines us? Beer. Who likes beer in here? Ah, crap, I hate beer. Who likes board games in here? Are there any other things that are typical to our world? Come again? I like video games. See, so I'm not completely on the outside, but just let's try to make that less of a thing. Would be my advice. All right, number 8. Controversial, I know. Please listen to sales and marketing. Who here often works with sales and marketing people in this room? I'm going to be honest, I am a marketer officially. I work in the marketing department. But working with a lot of salespeople and marketing people, I've come to empathize with their work. I mean, it's not easy. What they do directly impacts our salaries. If they stop selling things, well, not everyone. Some people are consultants here and sell themselves, but then you are the marketing person. Then you are the salesperson. A lot of salespeople, I've witnessed that, have to deal with rejection every single day. So they call 10 people and 9 people say no. Sometimes 10 people say no. But they have pretty good insights on how things work, what people want, because they usually lead their conversations not by saying, hey, I'm this, that, and the other, and we're doing this. The first calls are usually about figuring out what people want, what people need. And working with a lot of tech teams as well, I've noticed that a lot of the innovation comes from within the tech and then gets packaged up into a product that we're trying to sell. But in a lot of cases, it's a lot easier to figure out what people want and then adjust to it. You're lucky if your organization has a product department that tries to bridge that gap, but sometimes you have to put yourself forward and try doing that. Listen to sales, listen to marketing. I was in a situation like that once, where I once did a world tour, literal world tour. They put me on a plane and they bought a round the world ticket for me. And it started in Brussels and I flew all the way east around the globe and back in a month, and I had to do demos and presentations. And I remember being in Dubai in a hotel suite we rented out with a big TV and a nice little salon area, and we invited prospects to sit. And I was part of the meeting, and I was trying to be involved. I wanted to show that I had things to offer as well. And I continuously asked, like, yeah, the tech is great. I want to show it to you. Like, you want to see a demo? It's very tangible. You'll see how our product works. But the person wasn't really interested in that. And after the meeting, when the person left and I said, hi, salespeople bunched up on me. They ganged up on me and said, like, Thijs, sit down. We need to explain you something. That person was in no way, shape, or form interested in any part of the tech. He just wants to know how it's going to make him money, make him cut costs, or make things efficient. In your case, you don't need to talk about tech, which is kind of tough when you're a tech evangelist. Everything revolves around tech. But sometimes we have to change the way we communicate about the things we do. Like, who in here consider himself a pure developer? Any project managers involved? Any salespeople? Marketeers? What else? Sysadmins? Well, sometimes you just, and this is an important one, change the way you communicate about what you do. So those people who sat me down told me about value proposition. They told me how to reframe my message, a purely technical message, in something that adds value to people who don't have the slightest idea what the tech is about, but who could be a target for you to offer your services or sell your product. So in my case, I was doing a demo on how to use our technology to build a fully private CDN to accelerate online video content. And I showed them how to set up the points of presence, how to set up the caches, how to connect the routing systems. Whereas now I would position it completely differently. So I didn't prepare this part, so let's see if it goes well. But if I were to transform that private CDN message into something that is more value proposition oriented, I would say what we offer accelerates your content and will improve the end user quality of experience quite significantly. It will also reduce the strain on the infrastructure that you have, reducing the cost of maintaining it, but also maybe reducing license costs, bandwidth costs, egress charges, your cloud spend. Maybe you can reduce your infrastructure. This speed will not only improve your quality of experience for existing users, but open up avenues to generate revenue based on that. So all these people that sit there who are more on the business side of things hear the things they want to hear, because they have pretty either operational tasks or strategic tasks. And while your tech can help them, you need to translate and put it in their language. So my conclusion here is that you need to add value and talk about value proposition. And that took me a year to get off my tech clouds and sometimes talk in these terms. And no, I'm not a businessman. But sometimes, even for you, try it out when you need to. When you notice that whatever you're saying, your technical message isn't well received, try that. Number 9, we're 35 minutes in. What, I have 5 minutes? I have 5 more minutes, great. Build your personal brand is a big one. And my tech evangelism job started out at a Belgian hosting company where they encouraged me to do that. Because they also had external consultants who noticed that personal branding was a big thing. And I would encourage you to build your own brand. Now, who works for a company here? Or who is part, either as a contractor or as an employee? Well, you typically represent that brand, right? So when you go to technical events, I am Thijs, who works at Varnish software. And you represent that brand, you try to be an ambassador for that brand. Great. At the same time, you are your own brand as well. I am here not purely as Thijs from Varnish software, because I'm not doing a lot of talking about the caching. I'm here to represent myself. Build your own brand, build your personal brand. It could help you in a professional context and give you the opportunities you need. Sometimes you need to do a little bit of posturing, you need to position yourself in the right way. Sometimes luck is luck, right? And opportunities are opportunities and they pass by. But if you're in the right place, the right time, and the right mindset, as I've mentioned earlier, you have a bigger likelihood of getting those opportunities. That slow websites suck thing, that was one element. I have another element of personal branding that I use a lot, and that's my personal website. And that's a purely marketing website. What it does, it explains who I am and throws in some numbers, but I also list every single talk I've ever done on there. Yes, it feels like making things a bit bigger than they are, but they certainly help. Like whenever I submit talks to a conference, I could say, yeah, I've done 700, today is my 778 talk apparently. Does that mean a lot? No. Were these all big conferences? No. Were these events like this? No. Sometimes I was in a small room with 10 people, but that counts as well. And I use it as a personal branding mechanism. You can see the slides. If there's video involved, you can see it. It's purely marketing, and it's purely to position myself in a certain way and to get taken seriously. Because in the beginning, no one was really interested in booking me. Now, you can swap this out with whatever you're doing, right? But please build your personal brand, and you can use all kinds of tools for it. You can use there's a lot of podcasts out there. One could argue that there's too many podcasts out there. But there's podcasts about our industry. There might be podcasts about hobbies that you do. I've gotten a lot of value from being on Stack Overflow. So what I did is I subscribed to the hashtag Varnish, and whenever someone asks a question about Varnish, I get an email. And I make a habit out of it of replying and giving in-depth answers, or sometimes referring to pieces of documentation. And that has built me up, and sometimes people contact me directly because they see my profile, or they Google my name, they stumble upon my website. So it's a way of contributing in making things better. You can do GitHub. GitHub's a big one. I think, who here has made a career out of doing good things on GitHub? I really want. I see, yeah, Marco, George, I see a couple of people. A lot of people in the front rows are maybe too humble. I know all of you have built a career out of contributions on GitHub, or are in the process of even making bigger jumps and leaps because of the stuff they're doing. It's a good one. Everyone has its own style. I'm more of a verbal person. I like presenting, I like engaging, I like creating content. So for me, YouTube and Instagram have done a lot. I have some side projects as well that have taken unexpected turns over the years. For people who've seen me do keynotes, are probably sick and tired of it, but I'm going to tell the story nonetheless. So I noticed when, I think, when was it? Almost 10 years ago, that a lot of cool stuff was happening on YouTube. And it was the start of, or the acceleration of the influencer culture, which has gone out of hand by now, quite honestly. But I noticed that a lot of stuff was happening on YouTube. And then in 2015, which is 10 years ago, I got married. So I have my 10-year anniversary coming up this year. I got married, and a friend of mine who is not technical at all made a little video about my bachelor party. And it dawned on me, like, that guy has no tech skills at all. And he managed to create a video. You know what? I am going to start creating videos. Of course, I create videos for work, but had very little experience. But I'm also an avid football fan. I support a Belgian team called Club Brugge. And I told my friends who I go to the stadium with, what if we brought GoPros in and started filming things and recording things? And didn't connect well. It was like, yeah, who's going to watch that? No one does that. And that was exactly the point. No one does that. So I started taking my camera, started making vlogs, and uploading them to YouTube. And no one watched them. No one watched the stuff. And if I look back, it's pretty cringeworthy. If you look at it, it's like, wow, this is absolute crap. But I kept persisting. And remember that I said right place, right time, right mindset? Well, I was ready to go for it, despite having no success whatsoever. And then the situation changed. And my team, after a sort of a cup and title drop of 11 years, all of a sudden they won a league title. But I didn't see that coming. I was just filming. And I filmed it from a fan's perspective. And certainly, all of a sudden, this YouTube algorithm picked it up. And all of a sudden, I was getting thousands and thousands of views because enthusiasm levels were picking up. And I was in the right place, in the right time, in the right mindset. And it exploded. I have one video that accumulated a total across different platforms of 500,000 views, was featured in newspapers. And it was this thing. Did it help me professionally? In a direct way? No, it didn't. But indirectly, it did. It got me in touch with a lot of people. Because even now, I stopped doing most of those videos. I went to a cup final in Brussels last week, got approached by at least 20 people. Hey, you're still doing the videos? What's up? You're building out a network of something that seems highly unsuccessful in the beginning. Is it worth taking a GoPro to a football game and doing anything with it? Well, I've learned a lot of skills of operating it. I've learned how to edit it. And I'm pretty damn sure it helped me in my career as doing video editing for my day job. So something that completely seemed irrelevant helped me a lot. And I built a personal brand out of it, and I made it compatible with the personal brand I have as a tech evangelist. All right, number 10, the last one. Now we can finally go home. It's an easy one, be where the action is. And I'm actually preaching to the converted. I don't need to convince you of this, of being where the action is, because you are exactly where the action is. Go to these events. Who goes to small meetups sometimes? I'm going to raise my hands. Keep them in the air. Who's gotten value out of that? Met new people, career opportunities. Events where there were like sometimes less than 20 people. See? People are raising their hands. Sometimes it's little things that happen. I'll be somewhere next week, and I've noticed there's a meetup. And I'm ready to cancel my plans to attend that meetup because good things happen. Good things happen at these. You meet the right people, and you keep doing it and doing it and doing it. Who here has been at PHP Day more than 2 or 3 times? See, you keep going where the action is. Can I safely assume that you're still here after all these years because it added value to your life? Was it purely the presentations, or was it the people? Who is local, who is Italian, who has come to PHP Day a number of times, is here because of the people they meet? Well, a couple. That's good. Keep doing it. Be where the action is. Don't give up, because the alternative is that you're a 9-to-5er who just does the job, which is fine, right? I'm not dissing that, but if you want more opportunity, I met a ton of people because of this scene, at small meetups, at bigger conferences, and my life, both on a personal level and on a professional level, has gotten a lot better by meeting these people. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, I'm very ready to go downstairs and have a drink. If I'm allowed to, I'm not sure if anything happens after this, but I would like to thank you for being here. I would like to thank the organizer for having me back again. It was really nice seeing the people with the yellow t-shirt. I even recognized the couple who were here in 2011, so it's really nice that they have the crew still together. Yes, they deserve a round of applause.